Okay, welcome to the second video on the PT perspectives from BD. So we're on a program design kind of mini course here, I guess, and now we're looking at reps, sets and time under tension. Pulling and pushing through mud is the first thing that I tend to coach any new member, any new PT that's visited in the last 10 years. This idea of pulling and pushing through mud is something that's often been missed in personal training courses. Now, this idea was first given to me back in my martial arts training days with Steve Morris, where we were, or he was coaching me through Sanshin Kata in Goju-Ryu Karate. And this idea of pulling and pushing and getting this kind of intuition on the body through doing the kata was really eye-opening for me and gave me a far better connection with my movements. Very, very simply, if you imagine doing biceps curls and you pull up through mud and pull down through mud, you can then feel the muscles working under tension. Now, depending on what you want to achieve, the speed of the contractions or the tensions are manipulated, and pauses at various joint angles can be put in to elicit a set response. So this really is the foundation for reps and sets. So time under tension can be written grossly in terms of if we're working for 40 seconds, we're holding the muscles under a tension or a load for 40 seconds. And within that, you have your set tempo, which is indicative of the rep, okay? So you could, for instance, have your 10 reps and working on a 2-0-2-0 tempo. The way the tempo is written there, this comes straight from Charles Poliquin, who we did a lot of education with. So both I have him and Andre Benoit to thank for getting me to understand this way of programming. And it's something that I use daily here. So what this would mean would be the negative or the eccentric phase is written first, and we'd be lowering. So if we take that biceps curl, we'd be lowering over 2, there's no pause written at the bottom, so then we'll be coming back up over 2 beats and no pause at the top. If it was a, let's say a 2-1-2-1, then I'll be lowering over 2. We always write the negative or the eccentric first, pause and contracting for 1 at the bottom, and then the concentric or positive was up over 2 with the 1 second contraction at the top. But that would be a 6-second rep. And then obviously if our gross time was 40 seconds, we'd have to manipulate the amount of reps we'd do probably to 8, which would give us 42 seconds. That's about there. Okay. Now generally when I'm programming, remember I'm just programming for general pop, I stick to 4 sets of most exercises, okay? Now, for what we do here, for who we're coaching, this seems to work very well. Obviously, if I'm working with specific individuals, that varies massively. And when I mean specific individuals, mainly when I'm working with different athletes, then that varies considerably. Or if I'm working with people who have really set goals for certain things that they're doing. This, as I explained in the previous video, this is often then broken into 2x2 or 1x4, depending on the training approach we're taking. So 4 sets, for instance, 40 on, 20 off, 4 times, very similar to kind of the golden era bodybuilding work, where the guys would work for 10 to 12 reps, take a very short rest period, repeat anything up to 5 sets. This was highlighted to me often by my old mentor, Roy Duval, who was a training partner with Arnold and all those guys back in the day. And when Roy pushed you through workouts, it would always be very, very short rest periods. And that's something the guys picked up from Arnold, apparently. Okay, so we have the time under tension. So we have to look at that as both the gross time, so for instance 40 seconds for the set, and then the tempo. I'll explain tempo a little bit further because I manipulate it in certain ways depending on the exercises, especially when I'm working with the combat athletes in here. I've really worked the last couple of years especially on manipulating tempo for them and putting in very fast isometric pauses in certain exercises, which seems to really be paying off for them. Okay, so that's a brief perspective on how we approach program design, mainly for our weight training classes. There are very few explosive lifts, okay? We do use some plyometric work, mainly with a medicine ball. That would be factored in differently, but with the weight training classes, we don't particularly use a lot of explosive work because the guys that we're training don't need that. They want to build a base of strength. They want to understand where to pull and push from and how to use their bodies just to stay fitter, a little bit stronger, and for the most part, get leaner.